Thalarin stood before the massive viewing screen aboard the observation ship, watching the blue planet turn slowly in the darkness of space. Earth, they called it. The third planet from a yellow star, home to a species that had just discovered how to travel faster than light. His long fingers traced patterns on the control panel as data streams flowed across smaller displays around him. He was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied alien cultures for the Galactic Council. For 300 years, he had observed dozens of emerging civilizations. Most followed predictable patterns. They developed technology, unified their world governments, and then reached for the stars. Simple, expected, safe. But humans were different. Thalarin pulled up the preliminary reports his team had gathered. The images troubled him. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years, war after war, conflict after conflict. Their history was written in blood and ashes. Most species abandoned warfare long before they reached space travel. It was an evolutionary dead end after all. Fighting consumed resources and killed the intelligent members of a population. Yet somehow humans had survived. More than survived. They had thrived. His assistant, a younger Veltris named Kollian, approached with a data tablet. "The diplomatic meeting is arranged, sir. The humans have agreed to meet us at Outpost 17 in 3 days. Thalarin nodded slowly. "What do we know about their delegation?" "3 representatives," Colin read from the tablet. "Commander Jiho, a military officer, Ambassador Yuna, their chief diplomat, and Chief Engineer Do-hyun, who designed their faster-than-light drive. A soldier, a politician, and a scientist," Thalarin murmured. "Interesting choices." 3 days later, Thalarin stood in the meeting chamber of Outpost 17, a neutral space station on the edge of human territory. The room was designed for diplomacy, with soft lighting and comfortable seating arranged in a circle. Representatives from 6 different species had gathered to witness first contact with humanity. The doors opened with a soft hiss. 3 humans walked in, and Thalarin felt his breathing slow. They were smaller than he expected, physically unremarkable compared to most galactic species. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities. Just soft skin, dark hair, and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. But there was something in those eyes. An intensity. A sharpness that made Thalarin uncomfortable. Commander Jiho walked with military precision. His uniform was simple but well-maintained. He scanned the room like a predator assessing threats, though his face remained friendly and calm. Ambassador Yuna moved beside him, elegant and composed, her expression warm but guarded. Engineer Do-hyun brought up the rear, carrying a portable data device and looking around with open curiosity. "Welcome," Thalarin said in Standard Galactic, which he knew humans had been studying. "I am Thalarin of the Veltris Union, senior xenoanthropologist for the Galactic Council." Yuna stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for receiving us. We are honored by this meeting." Her pronunciation was nearly perfect. Thalarin had studied thousands of species learning Standard Galactic, and humans picked it up faster than most. The formal introductions took an hour. Each species present spoke about their worlds and their cultures. The humans listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. They seemed genuinely interested in learning about the galaxy they had just entered. When it was humanity's turn, Yuna spoke. "Our world is called Earth. We are a young species by galactic standards. We have only recently unified our planet under a single governing body. We come to the stars seeking knowledge, friendship, and new opportunities." One of the other observers, a crystalline being called Shartok, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Your historical records show extensive warfare. Conflicts that killed millions. Why should we trust a species with such violent tendencies?" The room grew quiet. Jiho spoke for the first time, his voice steady. "We do not hide our history. Yes, we fought each other. We made terrible mistakes, but we learned from them. Every war taught us the cost of conflict. Every peace taught us the value of cooperation. We are here because we chose to stop fighting and start building together. And if you face conflict again? Shartok pressed. What then? Jiho's eyes met the crystalline observer's gaze. Then we will do what must be done to protect our people and our allies. There was no threat in his words, but Thalrin felt a chill run through his body. It was not what Jiho said, but how he said it. There was certainty there, a quiet confidence that troubled Thalrin deeply. After the formal meeting ended, Thalrin invited the human delegation for an informal discussion. They sat in a smaller room with refreshments from various worlds. "Tell me about human persistence," Thalrin said. "I have read this word many times in your cultural documents, but I do not fully understand it." Do-hyun smiled. "Persistence means we do not give up easily. When we face a problem, we keep trying different solutions until something works." "All species problem solve," Thalrin countered gently. "True," Yuna agreed. "But humans have a saying, we do not know when to quit. Sometimes that is a weakness, sometimes that is our greatest strength." "There is another word I find interesting," Thalrin continued. "Spite." All three humans laughed. It was Jiho who answered. "Spite is when you do something difficult just because someone said you could not do it. It is not always logical. But it has driven humanity to accomplish many things." Thalrin made notes on his tablet. These concepts were alien to him. His species, the Velthris, were peaceful by nature. They solved disputes through meditation and discussion. The idea of continuing a fight out of sheer stubbornness seemed wasteful. Over the following weeks, Thalrin's observation ship followed human vessels, documenting their expansion into nearby systems. He watched them establish colonies on harsh worlds that other species would have abandoned. He saw them adapt to extreme conditions with remarkable speed. He also noticed their military. Human ships always traveled in groups, with armed escorts. They practiced combat drills constantly. Even their civilian vessels had basic defensive weapons. "They expect trouble," Colin observed one day. "They do," Thalrin agreed. "But from whom? They are alone in this region of space." "Not quite alone," Colin said, pointing to the star charts. "The Kryn Dominion has territory 3 systems away." Thalrin felt that chill again. The Kryn were known as aggressive expansionists. They took what they wanted and rarely negotiated. Most species simply avoided them, but human colonies were spreading directly toward Kryn space. He sent a warning to Ambassador Yuna, suggesting they choose a different direction for expansion. Her response came quickly. "We appreciate your concern. However, these worlds are unclaimed territory according to galactic law. We have as much right to settle them as anyone. We will not be pushed away from our chosen path by the threat of aggression." Thalrin read the message 3 times. There it was again. That stubborn refusal to back down. He began compiling his initial report for the Galactic Council. His mission was to observe humanity for 6 months and determine whether they should be invited to join the galactic community. 3 months into his observation, he still had no clear answer. Humans were creative and adaptable. They were friendly and curious. They genuinely seemed to want peace, but they also carried weapons everywhere. They trained for combat constantly, and beneath their polite smiles, he sensed something waiting, something dangerous. That night, Thalrin reviewed more human historical records. He watched videos of their ancient wars, soldiers charging into gunfire, cities burning, millions dying. And then he watched videos of their recovery, rebuilding, growing, becoming stronger. Most species that experienced such trauma either went extinct or became permanently pacifistic. Humans had done neither. They remembered their wars. They honored their dead. They built museums and memorials. But they also kept their weapons ready. Thalrin finally understood what made him so uncomfortable. Humans had not evolved past warfare. They had not lost the capacity for violence through genetic changes or cultural development. They had simply chosen not to fight each other anymore. And a choice, unlike evolution, could be reversed. As he prepared for sleep that night, one thought kept circling through his mind. What would happen when humans met a species that threatened them? Would they remain peaceful? Or would they show the galaxy why their species had survived thousands of years of warfare? He suspected he would find out soon enough. The alert came at dawn, ship time. Thalrin jerked awake as red lights flashed throughout his quarters. His communicator buzzed urgently on the bedside table. He grabbed it with trembling fingers. "Sir, we have a situation." Colin's voice was tight with stress. "The Kryn have moved ships into the new Hamyang system. 3 human colonies are there." Thalrin was already pulling on his clothes. "Are they attacking?" "Not yet. But their fleet positioning suggests hostile intent." 5 minutes later, Thalrin stood on the bridge of the observation ship, watching the tactical display. 12 Kryn warships surrounded the small agricultural colony of New Hamyang. Their weapons were powered but not yet firing. "Get me Ambassador Yuna," Thalrin ordered. Her face appeared on the screen within seconds. She looked tired but composed. "Thalrin, I assume you are calling about the Kryn situation. What will you do?" "We are attempting diplomatic contact. Commander Jiho is en route with a defense fleet, but they are 2 days away. We are asking the Kryn to withdraw and discuss territorial boundaries peacefully." "And if they refuse?" Yuna's expression hardened slightly. "Then we will defend our people." The communication ended. For the next 6 hours, Thalrin watched human diplomats try to negotiate. They offered compromises. They suggested shared use of the system's resources. They proposed neutral zone agreements. The Kryn response was always the same: silence, followed by their ships moving closer to the planet. Then the Kryn commander finally answered. Thalrin listened to the translation with growing horror. "This system belongs to the Kryn Dominion now. You have 12 hours to evacuate. Anyone remaining will be considered hostile." On New Hamyang, the human colonists received the message. Thalrin watched through orbital cameras as people rushed to loading areas. The colony had 5,000 residents, mostly farmers and their families. They had 3 small transport ships capable of holding perhaps 2,000 people total. The governor of New Hamyang, a woman named Minseo, sent a message to the Kryn. "We need more time. We have children and elderly. Give us 3 days to evacuate properly." The Kryn commander's response was to fire a warning shot. A beam of energy struck an empty warehouse on the colony's edge, vaporizing it instantly. "You have 11 hours now." Thalrin watched the human response with fascination and growing dread. Instead of panicking, the colonists moved with organized efficiency. Children and elderly were loaded onto the transports first. Essential supplies were packed. Medical equipment was prioritized. But something else was happening too. About 500 colonists were not boarding the ships. They were heading to the colony's small armory and equipment storage. Thalrin zoomed in the cameras to get a better view. They were arming themselves. Governor Minseo stood before this group in the colony's main square. Thalrin activated audio sensors to hear her speech. "I will not order anyone to stay," she said, her voice carrying across the square. "The transports will take those who choose to leave. But our homes are here. Our lives are here. If we run now, the Kryn will think all humans are easy prey. I am staying to send a different message." A man stepped forward from the crowd. According to the identification system, his name was Hyunwoo. He was a farmer, 28 years old, with no military training. "I am staying," Hyunwoo said simply. "This is my home. I will defend it." Others echoed his words. Teachers, engineers, parents who had sent their children away on the transports. They were not soldiers, but they picked up weapons anyway. Thalren felt sick. This is madness. They cannot win against a Kryn battle fleet. Colin looked at him with wide eyes. Should we intervene? We are observers, Thalren said, though the words felt hollow. We do not interfere. The transports launched, carrying the youngest and oldest to safety. That left 3,000 colonists still on the planet. 500 had chosen to fight. The rest were supporting them, preparing defenses, gathering supplies. Governor Minseo sent one more message to the Kryn. To those who think we will simply abandon our homes, you do not understand humans. We remember every bully we ever faced, every oppressor, every conqueror, and we remember what we did to them. Leave now, or learn the same lesson they did. The Kryn attacked at dawn the next day. Their ships bombarded the colony from orbit, destroying defensive positions and infrastructure. Landing craft descended, carrying Kryn soldiers in powered armor. The colonists fought back with everything they had. Thalren watched in shock as Hyunwoo and a group of farmers used agricultural equipment as weapons. Tractors became makeshift tanks. Crop harvesting lasers became anti-personnel weapons. Fertilizer became explosives. The Kryn were superior in every military measure: better armor, better weapons, better training. But the humans fought like nothing Thalren had ever seen. They did not form neat battle lines. They did not fight with honor or follow traditional combat rules. They hid in buildings and attacked from shadows. They set traps using farming equipment. They collapsed tunnels on Kryn soldiers. They used the terrain with cunning born of desperation. When a human position was overrun, they did not surrender. They fought until they could not fight anymore. Hyunwoo appeared on Thalren's screen, coordinating resistance from a damaged communications center. His face was covered in dirt and blood, but his voice remained steady as he directed his fellow colonists to fall back positions. Team 3, they are pushing through the eastern farms. Use the irrigation channels for cover. Team 5, activate the traps we set in the equipment yard. Make them pay for every meter. Governor Minseo fought alongside her people, carrying wounded to safety and organizing supply lines under fire. On the second day of fighting, Commander Jiho's fleet arrived. Thalren expected immediate military action, but instead, Jiho opened a communication channel to the Kryn commander. This is Commander Jiho of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked a peaceful colony without provocation. Withdraw immediately, and we will discuss this incident diplomatically. The Kryn commander laughed. Your little colony hurt my soldiers. This system is ours now. Leave, or we will destroy your ships too. Jiho's expression did not change. I gave you a chance for peace. You refused. What happens next is your responsibility, not mine. What happened next terrified Thalren. The human fleet was smaller than the Kryn force. 8 human ships against 12 Kryn warships. By every tactical calculation, the humans should have retreated. They attacked instead, but not like any military force Thalren had observed before. The human ships did not engage in traditional fleet combat. They moved with chaotic unpredictability. 3 ships would focus fire on one Kryn vessel, overwhelming its shields, while the others darted away from return fire. One human ship, badly damaged and venting atmosphere, did not retreat to safety. The captain, a young man named Taiyang, sent a final message. For New Hamyang, for humanity, remember us! Then he accelerated directly into a Kryn battle cruiser. The explosion destroyed both ships and disabled 2 others nearby. Thalren could not speak. Suicide tactics were considered barbaric by galactic standards. Most species would rather surrender than die needlessly. But Taiyang's sacrifice gave the other human ships an opening. They pressed the attack with renewed fury. The Kryn, shocked by such ferocity, began to make mistakes. Captain Yunji commanded the human flagship. She was calm but relentless, directing her fleet with cold precision. When a Kryn ship tried to retreat, she cut off its escape. When they tried to regroup, she split them apart. The battle lasted 9 hours. By the end, 7 Kryn ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 5 fled the system. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, including Tai Yang's vessel. On the surface, Governor Minseo and 300 colonists had survived. 200 had died defending their homes. Hyunwoo was among the survivors, though he had lost his left arm in the fighting. Thalren watched as human ships landed to bring medical supplies and support. The colonists did not celebrate their victory. They mourned their dead with quiet dignity. Commander Jiho walked among the ruins of the colony, speaking with survivors. When he found Hyunwoo in the medical tent, he knelt beside the farmer's bed. "You did not have to stay," Jiho said softly. "You could have left with the transports." Hyunwoo looked at him with tired eyes. "Yes, I could have. But then I would have spent the rest of my life wondering if I should have fought. Now I will spend it knowing I did." Later, Thalren reviewed the battle recordings. He analyzed the tactics, the strategies, the choices made. The Kryn had superior firepower and numbers. By all rights, they should have won easily. But they had made one critical mistake. They assumed humans would act like other galactic species. They expected surrender when the odds were bad. They expected retreat when casualties mounted. They expected fear to overcome determination. Instead, they encountered a species that fought harder when things got worse. Thalren began composing his report to the Galactic Council, but his hands shook as he typed. He had seen something that would haunt him forever. Humans did not fight to win battles. They fought to send messages. And the message they sent to the Kryn was clear. Attacking human colonies would cost more than any victory was worth. But what message would they send to the rest of the galaxy? Thalren was no longer sure he wanted to find out. The Galactic Council chambers were older than most civilizations. Carved from a single asteroid and polished smooth by thousands of years of diplomacy, the circular room could hold representatives from 200 different species. Today, it was filled to capacity. Thalren stood in the center, surrounded by delegates from across the galaxy. Above him, holographic displays showed his report on humanity. Images of the battle at New Hamyang rotated slowly for all to see. He had been speaking for an hour, and the council members were growing restless. "These humans fought against superior numbers with no guarantee of victory," Thalren explained, keeping his voice steady. "They used unconventional tactics that, while effective, demonstrate a willingness to embrace chaos in combat." Council member Vareth, a tall being with crystalline skin, spoke first. "We have seen warrior species before. They either destroy themselves or are destroyed by the galactic community. Why should humans be any different?" "Because they are not a warrior species," Thalren said carefully. "They are a survivor species. There is a difference." "Explain." This came from High Observer Kelvar, the Council's senior member, whose species had achieved spaceflight 2 million years ago. Thalren chose his words carefully. Most warrior species fight for dominance, for resources, for glory. Humans fight when they believe they have no other choice. They do not seek conflict, but they are extremely effective at it when necessary. "Then they are dangerous," Vareth said flatly. "We should establish a quarantine zone around human space. Let them stay in their corner of the galaxy until they mature or destroy themselves." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "I must object." Ambassador Yuna's voice cut through the noise. All eyes turned to where she stood in the observers section. Normally, representatives from species under observation were not permitted to speak during council deliberations, but Yuna had requested special permission, which had been granted. High Observer Kelvar gestured for her to approach. "Speak, Ambassador." Yuna walked to the center of the chamber with confident steps. She wore simple diplomatic robes and carried no visible weapons, yet Thalren noticed several council members lean away from her slightly. Members of the Galactic Council, Yuna began, her voice clear and strong. I understand your concerns. Our history is violent. We do not deny this. For thousands of years, humans fought each other over land, resources, beliefs, and pride. We killed millions. We destroyed entire cities. We created weapons capable of ending all life on our planet. She paused, letting that sink in. But we are still here, not because we love war, not because we are naturally violent. We are here because we learned from every conflict. Every war taught us something new about ourselves and about the cost of fighting. Eventually, we learned the most important lesson of all. And what lesson was that? High Observer Kelvar asked. That peace is harder than war, Yuna said simply. Any species can fight. It is easy to strike out when threatened. It is easy to take what you want by force. What is difficult is choosing to talk instead of shoot, choosing to compromise instead of conquer, choosing to build instead of destroy. We spent thousands of years learning how to make that difficult choice. Yet you fought the Kryn, Vareth pointed out. Where was your peaceful choice then? We offered peace first, Yuna replied, her voice hardening slightly. We offered compromise. We offered shared resources and neutral zones. The Kryn refused all of it. They attacked a civilian colony and killed our people. We defended ourselves because we had no other choice. You could have retreated, another council member suggested. No, Yuna said firmly, we could not. Because retreating would have sent a message to every aggressive species in the galaxy that humans are easy prey. It would have invited more attacks, more deaths, more wars. We fought to prevent future conflicts, not to cause them. Thalrin watched the council members' reactions. Some seemed thoughtful, others remained skeptical. Vareth spoke again. Your soldier sacrificed himself. He destroyed his own ship to damage the enemy. Such tactics are barbaric. Yuna's eyes flashed. Captain Taiyang chose to give his life to save others. He was not ordered to die. He made that choice himself. Many species have members who sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Why is it barbaric when humans do it? Because you do it too easily, Vareth said. You do not value individual life enough. We value it more than you can imagine, Yuna said softly. That is why we fight so hard to protect it. Every human who dies in combat is mourned. Every name is remembered. We do not send our people to die lightly. But when the choice is between one death and many, some humans choose to be that one. That is not barbarism. That is courage. The chamber fell silent for a long moment. High Observer Kelvar spoke. What do you want from this council, Ambassador? Only what is fair, Yuna replied. Judge us by our actions, not our history. We seek membership in the galactic community. We want to trade, to learn, to build friendships with other species. We will not threaten anyone who does not threaten us first. And if you are threatened? Yuna's expression did not change. Then we will defend ourselves, as any species would, but we will always try peace first. After Yuna finished speaking, the council debated for hours. Thalren was called to testify several more times, answering detailed questions about human behavior and culture. During a break, he found himself alone with Yuna in one of the observation chambers overlooking space. They are afraid of us, Yuna said quietly. Yes, Thalren agreed. Can you blame them? Your species is unpredictable. You fight when you should retreat. You risk everything when a smaller sacrifice would be safer. Is that really what scares them? Yuna asked, looking at him directly. Or is it something else? Thalren did not answer immediately. He had been asking himself the same question. I have studied your history extensively, he finally said. I have watched recordings of your wars, analyzed your military strategies, reviewed your cultural documents, and I have discovered something that troubles me deeply. What is that? Most species in this galaxy evolved past warfare through biological or cultural changes they could not control. The Velthris, my people, developed neural pathways that make violence physically painful for us. Others developed hive minds where individual aggression was eliminated. Still others became pacifistic through religious or philosophical evolution. He turned to face her. But humans did not evolve past warfare. You chose to stop fighting, and a choice, Ambassador, can be unmade. Yuna smiled sadly. You think we will choose violence again? I think you have never lost the capacity for it, Thalarin said. You are like a predator that has decided to eat plants. You still have the teeth. You still have the claws. And when threatened, those instincts return. Then you understand us better than most, Yuna said. Yes, we still have the capacity for war. We remember how to fight. We train our soldiers and maintain our weapons, but that is exactly why we can be trusted. Thalarin looked at her in confusion. How does that make sense? Because we know what war costs, Yuna explained. Species that evolved past violence never experienced its true horror. They never felt the pain of losing millions. They never saw their cities burn. They never stood in the ashes of their own civilization and swore never to let it happen again. We did. And that knowledge, that memory, makes us more committed to peace than any species that simply forgot how to fight. She gestured to the stars beyond the window. Out there are aggressive species like the Kryn, species that see kindness as weakness. If the galaxy is filled only with species that cannot fight back, what happens when predators arrive? Who protects the peaceful? Thalarin felt a chill run through him. He had never considered that perspective. You are saying the galaxy needs warriors to protect the non-warriors? I am saying the galaxy needs someone who understands violence well enough to prevent it, Yuna corrected. Someone who knows when to fight and when to talk. Someone who has learned from thousands of years of mistakes. Before Thalarin could respond, an alert flashed on his communicator. The council was reconvening. The vote took place that evening. Economic sanctions against humanity were approved by a large majority. Full membership was denied. Humans would be allowed to continue their expansion, but would face restrictions on trade and military buildup. It was a compromise that satisfied no one. As the council adjourned, Thalarin caught sight of Commander Jiho speaking with other military observers. The commander's expression was neutral, but Thalarin could sense his disappointment. Later, Thalarin returned to his ship and began reviewing new intelligence reports. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Kryn had not learned their lesson at New Hamyang. Instead of backing down, they were mobilizing a larger fleet. Intelligence suggested they were planning a coordinated assault on multiple human colonies simultaneously, and the Galactic Council had just restricted humanity's ability to build up defenses. Thalarin sat in his quarters, staring at the reports for hours. He thought about Yuna's words, about human history, about species that chose peace versus species that evolved into it. And he realized something that terrified him. The galaxy was about to learn what humans became when they felt truly threatened, not when one colony was attacked, but when their entire species faced extinction. Thalarin began recording a message to the Galactic Council, warning them of the coming storm. But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The Kryn were already moving. And humanity was about to show the galaxy what they really were. The attack came at midnight, across 5 human colonies simultaneously. Thalarin's observation ship was near the colony world of Sabiok when the Kryn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. 40 warships materialized in perfect formation, their weapons already charging. "Get us to a safe distance," Thalarin ordered his crew, "and record everything." Kolian looked at him with frightened eyes. "Should we warn the colonists?" "They already know," Thalarin said, pointing to the display. Human defense stations were already powering up. Civilian ships were evacuating the planet's surface. They have been preparing for this since New Hamyang. On the colony below, Governor Minseo had been asleep when the alarm sounded. She was out of bed and dressed in under 2 minutes, running to the command center as explosions lit up the night sky above her city. "Status report," she shouted as she entered the control room. 40 Kryn ships in orbit," her defense coordinator replied. "They are targeting military installations first, but civilian areas will be next. We have maybe 10 minutes before orbital bombardment begins." "Evacuate everyone who can evacuate," Minseo ordered. "Everyone else to the shelters, and activate Protocol Scorched Welcome." Her staff exchanged grim looks but began executing orders immediately. Protocol Scorched Welcome was something Commander Jiho had developed after New Hamyang. It was based on an ancient human military strategy. If you must give ground, make the enemy pay dearly for every meter they take. On Sabiok and the 4 other colonies under attack, humans began implementing the protocol with cold efficiency. Every military facility was rigged with explosives. Every vehicle was booby-trapped. Every building was filled with surprises for would-be occupiers. Roads were mined. Water supplies were contaminated. Computer systems were set to overload and destroy data if accessed by enemy forces. The humans were not just defending their homes. They were turning them into death traps. Thalren watched from orbit as Kryn landing craft descended toward Sabiok. The first wave of soldiers reached the ground and began advancing on the main city. They made it 3 blocks before the ambushes began. Human civilians who had stayed behind were not soldiers, but they had been trained in guerrilla warfare. A teacher named Sumin, only 17 years old, operated an anti-aircraft turret from the roof of her school. Her hands were steady as she tracked Kryn dropships and fired. When enemy soldiers breached her building, she did not run. She activated the explosives hidden in the lower floors and escaped through a pre-prepared tunnel. Throughout the city, similar scenes played out. The Kryn had superior numbers and firepower, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to face them directly. "This is not honorable combat," the Kryn commander complained over open channels. "Face us properly, cowards!" Governor Minseo sent a reply that Thalren recorded for his report. "Honor is for people who can afford it. We are fighting for our survival. We will use every advantage we have." In orbit, Admiral Kyung-ho arrived with the human defense fleet. He had only 15 ships against 40 Kryn warships. The mathematical odds of victory were nearly 0. He attacked anyway. But Kyung-ho had learned from previous battles. Human ships no longer fought like traditional navies. They used asteroid fields for cover. They fired and retreated before enemy shields could recalibrate. They targeted engines and weapon systems instead of trying to destroy ships outright. And when a human ship was too damaged to continue fighting, the crew had a choice to make. Surrender was not an option. The Kryn did not take prisoners. Some crews abandoned ship in escape pods, hoping to be picked up later. Others stayed aboard and aimed their ships at enemy targets, following Captain Taeyang's example from New Hamyang. Thalren watched 5 human ships die this way. 5 crews sacrificing themselves to damage or destroy enemy vessels. Each time he wanted to look away, but he forced himself to watch, to record, to bear witness. On the 3rd day of battle, Engineer Do-hyun arrived at Sabiok aboard a retrofitted cargo hauler. The ship was not designed for combat, but humans had attached weapons to every available surface. "This is Engineer Do-hyun calling all civilian vessels in the Sabiok system," his broadcast began. "If your ship has engines, we can make it fight. Bring your vessels to Rally Point Gamma for retrofitting. We need every ship we can get." Within hours, cargo haulers, mining vessels, and personal yachts were being transformed into improvised warships. The modifications were crude but effective. A mining ship captain named Yunji brought her vessel to help. Her ship normally carried raw ore between asteroid mines and processing stations. Now it carried missiles made from mining explosives. "My ship is slow and clumsy," she told Do-hyun as his team worked. "But if I can get close enough to a Kryn battleship, I can hurt it." "You will probably die," Do-hyun said bluntly. "Probably," Yoonji agreed. "But my daughter is on that planet. If I die stopping the Kryn from reaching her, that is a good death." Thalran recorded this conversation. He noted how calmly these humans discussed their potential deaths, as if dying for a cause was just another choice they could make. The battle reached its peak on the 5th day. The Kryn had landed forces on all 5 colonies, but every one of them was mired in brutal urban combat. Their casualties were mounting far faster than predicted. Human guerrilla tactics turned every building into a potential ambush site. In orbit, the space battle had become a chaotic mess. Human ships darted between Kryn vessels like insects attacking a predator. They were too small and too quick to kill easily, and everyone that was destroyed seemed to take a piece of the Kryn fleet with it. Then something happened that changed everything. A human medical ship, clearly marked with red crosses to indicate non-combatant status, approached the battlefield. The Kryn ignored it, assuming it was there to evacuate wounded. Instead, the ship broadcast on all frequencies in multiple languages. "This is Medical Ship Mercy. We are offering treatment to wounded from both sides. Any Kryn soldiers who are injured can signal us for pickup and medical care. We will treat you according to the Galactic Convention on Wartime Medicine." The broadcast repeated every 60 seconds. At first, the Kryn ignored it. But as their casualties mounted and their medical supplies ran low, some began to reconsider. A Kryn squad trapped in a collapsed building sent a distress signal. The Mercy landed nearby, and human medics rushed out under fire to reach the wounded aliens. Thalran zoomed his cameras in to watch. A young woman named Haeun led the medical team. She was small even for a human, barely out of medical school, but she moved through the combat zone with calm determination. When she reached the Kryn soldiers, one of them raised a weapon at her. Haeun did not flinch. She simply opened her medical kit and gestured to his injured leg. "I am here to help," she said in halting Kryn language. "Please let me treat your wounds." The soldier hesitated, then lowered his weapon. For the next 20 minutes, Haeun and her team treated both human and Kryn wounded side by side. They stabilized injuries, administered pain relief, and prepared patients for transport. As they were loading the last wounded Kryn soldier onto a stretcher, a mortar round struck nearby. The explosion threw everyone to the ground. Thalran watched in horror as Haeun struggled to her feet. She was badly wounded, bleeding from multiple shrapnel injuries. But instead of seeking safety, she crawled toward the injured Kryn soldier who had fallen during the explosion. With shaking hands, she applied a compression bandage to his wound. Her face was pale from blood loss, but she worked steadily until the bandage was secure. "You will be okay," she told the soldier in his own language. "Help is coming." Then she collapsed. The human medical team reached her seconds later, but it was too late. Haeun died there in the rubble, surrounded by the people she had tried to save. The Kryn soldier she had treated watched this happen. According to Thalran's sensors, the soldier's physiological readings showed confusion and distress. That recording spread through the Kryn fleet within hours. Thalran did not know who leaked it, but suddenly Kryn soldiers were seeing a human medic die while trying to save their comrade. It created confusion in their ranks. They had been told humans were weak prey, cowards who would break easily. But humans did not break. They fought ferociously, yes, but they also showed mercy to their enemies. They booby-trapped their cities while simultaneously offering medical care to wounded Kryn. How could a species be so contradictory? On the 7th day, Admiral Kyung-ho made a risky move. He gathered every remaining human ship, including the civilian vessels that Do-hyun had armed, and launched a coordinated assault on the Kryn flagship. "All ships, this is Kyung-ho. They think we are defeated. They think we will run. Show them what humans do when our backs are against the wall. Show them we do not break. We do not surrender. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we fight some more. 20 human ships attacked a single Kryn battleship in a desperate gamble. Half of them were destroyed in the first minute of combat, but the ones that survived got through. Mining ship Captain Yunji was among them. Her slow, clumsy ore hauler somehow avoided destruction long enough to get within ramming distance of the Kryn flagship. "For my daughter," she said over the radio. "For humanity. For all of us." Her ship struck the Kryn flagship amidships. The improvised missiles in her cargo hold detonated on impact. Both ships exploded in a flash of light that temporarily blinded Thalren's sensors. When the view cleared, the Kryn flagship was gone, and so was Captain Yunji. The remaining Kryn fleet, seeing their command ship destroyed, began to withdraw. They had lost over 30 vessels. Their ground forces were decimated. They had achieved nothing except confirming what the galaxy was beginning to suspect. Humans could not be conquered easily. The cost would always be too high. Thalren sat in his observation ship, surrounded by recordings of the battle. He had documented everything, every sacrifice, every tactical decision, every moment of brutality and compassion. And he realized something that made him tremble. Humanity had just shown the galaxy what they became when pushed to the edge. Not mindless berserkers, not cruel conquerors, but survivors willing to pay any price to protect what they loved. The question was, would the galaxy learn the right lesson from this? Or would they make the same mistake the Kryn had made? 6 months had passed since the Kryn attacks. Thalren stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers, but this time the atmosphere was different. Heavy, tense, afraid. The holographic displays showed footage from the 5 colony battles. Images of destroyed Kryn ships rotated slowly above the assembled delegates. Statistics glowed in the air. Kryn losses exceeded 60% of their invasion fleet. Human casualties were severe, but their colonies still stood, and humanity was still expanding into space. They must be stopped. This came from Vareth, the Crystalline Council member who had opposed humanity from the beginning. "You have all seen the recordings. They fight with no regard for their own survival. They turn civilian ships into weapons. They die willingly to destroy their enemies." "They defended themselves," another delegate countered. "The Kryn attacked them." "Today they defend," Vareth said. "Tomorrow they attack. They have the capability and the mindset for conquest. We must act before it is too late." Thalren listened to the debate with growing frustration. They were missing the point, all of them. When High Observer Kelvar called on him to present his final report, Thalren walked to the center of the chamber carrying 6 months of observations, recordings, and analysis. But he did not start with statistics or tactical assessments. He started with a confession. "When I began this observation mission, I believed I was studying a dangerous species that needed to be contained or controlled," Thalren said. "I watched humans with suspicion and fear. I documented their capacity for violence and their willingness to sacrifice themselves. I was certain that they represented a threat to galactic peace." He paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. "I was wrong." The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. "Explain yourself," High Observer Kelvar demanded. "We fear humans because they remind us of what we gave up to achieve peace," Thalren said. "Every species in this chamber evolved past warfare through biological changes or cultural shifts that were beyond individual control. The Velthris developed neural pathways that make violence painful. The Kryn evolved hive mind tendencies that suppress individual aggression. The Archon Collective achieved peace through chemical changes to their brain structure." He gestured to the images of human soldiers, farmers, and medics displayed above them. "But humans did not evolve past warfare. They chose to stop fighting each other. And that choice makes them fundamentally different from every other species in this galaxy. That is precisely why they are dangerous, Vareth insisted. No, Thalarin said firmly. That is precisely why they are valuable. Before anyone could respond, the chamber doors opened. Ambassador Yuna entered, accompanied by Commander Jiho and Governor Minseo. They had been invited to hear the final deliberations. Thalarin nodded to them and continued. During my observation, I witnessed things that troubled me deeply. I saw humans fight with terrifying effectiveness. I saw them sacrifice themselves without hesitation. I saw them turn their own colonies into death traps. All of this confirmed my initial fears. Then why defend them? A delegate asked. Because I also saw other things, Thalarin said. I saw a medic named Heiyun die while treating enemy soldiers. I saw farmers like Hyunwoo defend their homes not out of aggression, but out of love for what they built. I saw Captain Unji sacrifice herself not for glory or conquest, but to protect her daughter, and I finally understood what humanity truly is. He pulled up a new set of recordings. These showed human colonies being rebuilt, memorials being constructed, children playing in parks where battles had been fought weeks earlier. Humans are not warriors by nature, Thalarin said. They are survivors by necessity. They do not love war. They hate it. But they are willing to endure it when no other option exists. And that willingness, combined with their individual choice to pursue peace, makes them unique in the galaxy. High Observer Kelvar leaned forward. You are suggesting we should trust them? I am suggesting we need them, Thalarin said. This galaxy has been peaceful for millennia because most species cannot fight. We achieved peace by losing the capacity for violence. But what happens when aggressive species like the Kryn emerge? What happens when predators appear who view kindness as weakness? He gestured to Ambassador Yuna. Humans understand violence deeply enough to prevent it. They know when to fight and when to negotiate. They can teach us things we have forgotten. Yuna stepped forward, bowing respectfully to the council. May I speak? High Observer Kelvar nodded permission. You fear us because we advance to war, not from it, Yuna said, her voice clear and strong. You see our history of conflict and assume we will repeat it, but you misunderstand what our history taught us. She pulled up images of Earth, ancient battles, modern cities, space stations. War did not end on Earth because we evolved beyond it. It ended because we consciously chose peace. Every day, every human makes that choice. We remember what war costs. We honor those who died in conflicts. We teach our children about the horrors our ancestors endured. And we choose, deliberately and constantly, not to repeat those mistakes. Choices can be reversed, Vareth said coldly. Yes, Yuna agreed. They can, but that is our strength, not our weakness. Species that evolved past violence have no choice. If they face aggression, they cannot defend themselves. They must rely on others for protection or submit to conquest. She looked around the chamber. Humans can choose violence when necessary and peace when possible. We can fight to protect the weak. We can negotiate from a position of strength. We can be both warriors and peacemakers, depending on what the situation requires. Commander Jiho spoke next. I am a soldier. I have trained for war my entire life. I have studied every major conflict in human history. I know 1,000 ways to destroy an enemy. But I also know something else. The best victory is the one achieved without fighting. We maintain our military not because we want to use it, but because we want to never need to use it. Governor Minseo added her voice. I watched my colony burn. I saw good people die defending their homes. I felt rage and grief that still keeps me awake at night. But I also saw humans show mercy to their enemies. I saw medics treat Kryn soldiers. I saw civilians offer water to enemy prisoners. We can be fierce and compassionate at the same time. That is what makes us human. The council debated for hours after the humans finished speaking. Thalrin watched the vote counters carefully, trying to predict the outcome. Finally, High Observer Kelvar called for order. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision," the ancient being announced. "By a narrow majority, humanity is granted provisional membership. Economic sanctions will be lifted. However, restrictions remain on military expansion, and human colonies will be monitored for aggressive behavior." It was not the full acceptance humans had hoped for, but it was better than quarantine or hostility. As the council adjourned, Thalrin found himself approached by several delegates who wanted copies of his detailed observations. They were beginning to understand what he had learned. Later, he met with Ambassador Yuna in a quiet observation chamber. "Congratulations on your provisional membership," Thalrin said. "It is a start," Yuna replied. "We will prove ourselves worthy of full membership in time." "I believe you will," Thalrin said. "But I must warn you. There are still many in the galaxy who fear humanity. Some will test you. Others will try to provoke conflicts to prove you are dangerous." "Let them try," Yuna said with a slight smile. "We will meet every challenge with patience and strength. We will show them what humans truly are." Over the following months, Thalrin continued to observe humanity as they took their place in the galactic community. He watched them establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and diplomatic relationships with dozens of species. He also watched their military. Despite council restrictions, humans maintained a strong defense force, but they used it wisely. When pirates attacked a Velthris cargo ship, it was human vessels that responded first, driving off the attackers and escorting the damaged freighter to safety. When a natural disaster struck a colony world belonging to another species, human rescue teams were among the first to arrive with supplies and medical aid. When the Kryn tested human resolve by making threatening moves near the border, Commander Jiho responded not with aggression, but with a clear message. "We do not want war, but we will not run from it either. Choose wisely." The Kryn chose to back down. 5 years after first contact, Thalrin received a surprising assignment. The Galactic Council wanted him to help establish a new peacekeeping force that could respond to conflicts across the galaxy, and they wanted humans to lead it. Thalrin found himself working alongside Commander Jiho, training mixed-species crisis response teams. They taught soldiers from peaceful species how to defend themselves when necessary. They taught aggressive species when restraint was more powerful than force. "You are teaching them the human way," Thalrin observed one day as Jiho conducted a training exercise. "I am teaching them balance," Jiho corrected. "How to be strong without being cruel. How to fight without losing compassion. How to protect the innocent without becoming the monster they fear." Thalrin watched a training scenario unfold. A Velthris recruit hesitated when faced with a simulated threat, unable to overcome biological programming against violence. A human soldier named Bora stepped in, demonstrating how to subdue the threat without killing. "You see," Jiho said, "we are not teaching them to be warriors. We are teaching them to be guardians. There is a difference." Years later, Thalrin wrote his final report on humanity. It was read by every member of the Galactic Council and became required reading for all xenoanthropology students. His conclusion was simple, but profound. Humanity's relationship with war is both their greatest weakness and their greatest strength. They know the horror of conflict because they lived it for thousands of years. They know the cost of violence because they counted their dead in millions. They know the temptation of conquest because they fought each other for dominance. But they also know something the rest of the galaxy has forgotten: how to choose peace when war would be easier, how to show mercy when vengeance would be satisfying, how to build when destruction would be simpler. The galaxy fears humans because they advance toward war, not from it. We fear their capacity for violence, their willingness to sacrifice, their refusal to surrender. We fear them because they break all our assumptions about how intelligent species should behave. But perhaps we are asking the wrong question. Perhaps we should not fear what humans are, but be grateful that they choose to be our allies rather than our enemies. They fight not because they love war, but because they love what they are protecting. And that, ultimately, is what makes them most dangerous and most valuable to the galactic community. Thalarin sent his report to the Council, and then walked to the observation deck of his ship. Below him, Earth turned slowly in space, blue and green and beautiful. He thought about Heiyun, who died treating enemy soldiers, about Unji, who sacrificed herself for her daughter, about Hyunwoo, who defended his farm with tools meant for growing food, about all the humans who chose peace but remained ready for war. And he finally understood what made them special. They were not perfect. They were not invincible. They were not the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy. But they were survivors who never forgot how to hope, and sometimes that was enough.